Have you ever sat through a horror movie and found yourself more terrified by the sticky theater floor than anything on screen? Yeah, me too. Sometimes it feels like the scariest part is the plot holes, not the plot. That's why today I'm diving into the famous disturbing movie scene, Iceberg. Basically, it's the most shocking scenes from scary, disturbing movies, but it progressively gets much worse. Like, Layer 1 is already pretty scary if you're just an average horror fan, but then in Layer 2 we have Hereditary, which is considered by the average person as one of the most scariest modern day horror movies. There are 6 other layers on this iceberg. Obviously, this is a trigger warning. If you have a trigger, these movies will probably trigger it. But if that's okay to you and you're ready to have your soul crushed like I did researching this video, like the video and subscribe, because I'm the guy who's excited to talk to you about all this weird stuff. I don't agree with any of this disturbing stuff, but I find it interesting to talk to people about. Layer 1. First up is Insidious, and it's the notorious red face scene. Imagine this, it's broad daylight and Josh and Renee are casually chatting at the dining table. No ominous music, no creepy shadows, just a normal conversation. Then bam! The lipstick-faced demon appears right behind Josh like he owns the place. It's the kind of jump scare that makes you question every corner of your own home during daylight hours. What's brilliant here is how it flips the script. We're so conditioned to expect scares in the dark that when horror shows up for brunch, it catches us completely off guard. And let's be honest, after this, red paint has never looked the same. Sliding into signs, let's talk about that infamous birthday party scene. You're watching grainy home video footage from a kid's party in Brazil. Piñatas, cake, the whole 9 yards. Then, out of nowhere, an alien strolls past the driveway like it's just another guest running late for the party. No dramatic entrance, no flying saucer, just a casual extraterrestrial cameo. The raw, shaky footage makes it eerily realistic, like you're witnessing something you're not supposed to see. It's that unexpected normalcy that sends chills down your spine, making you side-eye every piece of found footage you come across. Now brace yourself for the mist and its very gut-wrenching ending. Picture this, David Drayton and a small group of people in his family are trapped in a car. Surrounded by the terrifying mist filled with unimaginable monsters, David believes that all hope is lost, and he makes an unthinkable decision to spare them from a worse fate, if you get what I mean. What makes this even more heart-wrenching is that his own child is with him. Moments later, after making this decision, the military arrives, clearing the mist and revealing salvation was just seconds away. It's a punch to the emotional gut that leaves you staring at the screen in disbelief. The scene doesn't rely on any jump scares. It messes with your psyche, forcing you to contemplate the harrowing choices people make under despair. It's not just scary, it's haunting. Descending further, we have The Descent's first encounter with the crawlers. 6 friends decide spelunking in uncharted caves is a solid weekend plan. What could go wrong? As tensions rise and light dwindles, the night vision camera reveals a pale, humanoid creature lurking just beyond one of them. It's a fleeting glimpse, but enough to make your skin crawl. The claustrophobic setting amplifies the terror, making every shadow a potential threat. After watching this, I crossed exploring caves off my bucket list permanently. And lastly, on Layer 1, let's revisit the iconic axe scene from The Shining. Jack Torrance, played masterfully by Jack Nicholson, is the picture of unhinged as he breaks down a bathroom door, wielding an axe. And you probably remember this moment.
Here's Johnny!
Yeah, that's basically been seared now into pop culture history. It's not just about the imminent danger, it's witnessing a man's complete descent into madness, the familiar comfort of a home turned into a twisted maze of terror, reminding us that sometimes the scariest monsters are human. So most iconic famous horror movie moments are in this first layer, which means layer 2 is now going to be scenes that not only scare you, but really make you want to check your closet before you head to bed. Because we're just getting started, which brings me to Annihilation. Let's talk about it, and that spine-chilling bear scene. So you're with a team venturing into the mysterious Shimmer, where the laws of nature have basically packed up and left. Tensions are already high when they hear what sounds like their lost friend Cass screaming for help. Relief, right? Not so much. Enter the mutant bear from your worst nightmares. A creature that's not content with just being a bear, but has also absorbed the dying screams of its victims. Imagine a roar that's part growl, part human agony. It's the kind of sound that sticks with you. The scene plays out with excruciating tension as the team is tied up, helpless, while this abomination decides who's next on the menu. It's a masterclass in psychological horror, making you question what's scarier, the creature itself or the idea of part of you living on inside it. After this, even a teddy bear might seem a little sus to you from now on. Now we gotta shift gears to Saw 3D and the infamous furnace scene. Just when you thought Jigsaw's DIY traps couldn't get any more extreme, they toss in an industrial furnace for good measure. Our guy Dan is locked in, racing against the clock to solve a puzzle that would make a Rubik's Cube look like child's play. Spoiler alert, he doesn't make it. The timer hits 0 and suddenly you're at Swiss Chalet, except instead of chicken, it's a human rotisserie, and nobody's craving barbecue. What's particularly jarring is the helplessness, not just of Dan, but of everyone watching, including us. It's a reminder that in the Saw universe, safety regulations are non-existent, and thinking on your feet is a literal lifesaver. Note to self, avoid any rooms with a very large furnace and a ticking timer. Speaking of unexpected horrors, let's revisit Hereditary and that shocking car accident scene. If you've seen it, you know exactly the one. Picture this, the son is frantically driving his sister to the hospital after a severe allergic reaction. She's gasping for air, so she sticks her head out of the window for relief. Meanwhile, you're gripping your seat because the tension is just insane. This is a phenomenal movie scene. Then out of nowhere, bam, her head connects with a telephone pole. Silence. Absolute, dreadful silence. It's a gut punch that leaves both the son and the audience in stunned disbelief. What makes this scene so horrifying isn't just the suddenness, but the raw depiction of grief and shock that follows. It doesn't rely on supernatural elements at this moment. It's a brutal slice of a tragic reality. Let me tell you, it makes every quick drive to the store feel a little bit more scary. From car rides to cliff dives, Midsommar gives us the unnerving cliff diving scene. Imagine attending a quaint Swedish festival. Flower crowns, folk music, the works. Then, as part of the festivities, you witness two elders calmly walk off the face of a cliff, plummeting onto the rocks below. The first impact is graphic, but when the second elder survives the fall and the community members casually crush his skull with a mallet, you're left questioning all of your vacation plans to Sweden. The daylight setting makes it even more disturbing. Horror unfolding under the bright, unforgiving sun is a stark contrast to the typical dark and stormy night trope, proving that terror doesn't take a lunch break. After this, group trips to remote locals have permanently lost their appeal. Next up is Fear Street Part 1, 1994, and the bread slicer scene that nobody saw coming. You're following Kate, who's just trying to survive a massacre while working her late shift at the grocery store. Typical teen problems, right? During the chaos, she ends up face to face with the killer, and in a gruesome twist, gets pushed through an industrial bread slicer. Yes, you heard that correctly, a bread slicer. It's a moment that's both shockingly graphic and ridiculously imaginative, leaving you equal parts horrified and impressed by the audacity. It takes the term slicing bread to a whole new, unpleasant level. Safe to say, I might be scared of my toaster now. Lastly, in Layer 2, let's revisit driving anxieties with Final Destination 2 and the log truck scene. If you are scared of driving, you probably want to skip this one. You're on a road trip, tunes are playing, life's good. Then you find yourself behind a truck hauling massive logs secured by what looks like dental floss. Cue the premonition, the chains snap, logs tumble, and suddenly the highway is a domino effect of vehicular catastrophe. It's a chaotic symphony of destruction, and that is the perfect word to describe this because it's literally a song. Cars flipping, explosions, unimaginable accidents, all because of some poorly secured timber. This scene has single-handedly caused millions to change lanes the minute they spot a truck carrying anything resembling cargo. It's not just a scene, it's a cultural touchstone for irrational driving fears. Remember, safety first. Always keep a safe distance, or avoid highways entirely. If Layer 2 had you checking over your shoulder, this is now getting into the effed up tier. I'd describe Tier 3 simply like this. If you mention these movies on a first date with someone, it has a 50% chance of being a red flag to your date. I only know that from personal experience. Let's kick it off with Terrifier 2 and the infamous home invasion scene involving Allie. Picture this, Allie is prepping for a Halloween party when Art the Clown decides to drop by uninvited. Now, Art isn't the kind of clown you'd hire for balloon animals, unless you want those balloons to be literal human heads. He chases Allie to her bedroom, and what follows is a relentless, brutal event that redefines on-screen violence. Art doesn't just end her, he methodically tortures her, starting by giving her a really bad haircut, something I thought I would never have to say. He doesn't just stop there though. He goes on to, you know when you have KFC and you can kind of take the crusty stuff and the top layer of the chicken meat skin off? Yeah, that. He then decides to snap a branch, and let's just say he gets creative then with bleach and salt in ways that would make a sadist cringe. Yeah, let's see if YouTube allows this video to stay up. The scene is unflinching, holding nothing back, which makes it all the more terrifying. It's a visceral experience that pushes boundaries and leaves even seasoned horror fans reaching for the pause button or the exit of the movie theater. After watching this, clowns at birthday parties are officially off the table for me. Moving on to Dr. Sleep. Let's discuss the scene that left many viewers emotionally rattled, the fate of the baseball player Bradley Trevor. Bradley's a young boy with a special gift, and unfortunately, that makes him a target for the True Knot, a group that feeds off psychic energy. They abduct him, and what follows is a heart-wrenching depiction of fear and pain. As they extract his steam, Bradley's desperate cries and pleas for mercy are met with cold indifference. The performance by Jacob Tremblay is so convincing that it's genuinely difficult to watch. It's not just about the physical act, but just hearing the sheer terror in his voice. The scene doesn't rely on any jump scares. Instead, it leaves a lasting impact by showcasing true evil in the form of those who exploit. It's a moment that lingers with you, making you reflect on the darker sides of humanity, or in this case, those who have forsaken it. Now, let's talk about Eden Lake and its gut punch of an ending. After surviving a harrowing ordeal against a group of violent teenagers, our protagonist Jenny finally escapes. Bruised, battered, but hopeful, she's finally out. She stumbles upon a seemingly safe haven, only to realize she's walked straight into the lion's den, the homes of her attackers with their parents in them. The relief turns to dread as the parents, far from being her saviors, decide to cover up their children's evil actions by silencing her. The helplessness is palpable as Jenny understands that justice won't be served and that she's trapped in a cycle of violence and denial. It's a bleak commentary on social failure and the lengths people will go to protect their own, even when they are monstrously wrong. This ending doesn't just unsettle you, it leaves you with a profound sense of injustice that can't be shaken off with the rolling credits. Shifting into the realm of international horror, Audition delivers one of the most unnerving scenes with its infamous Kiri 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 moment. What starts as a slow burn romantic drama that honestly seems fun takes a sharp left turn into nightmare territory. Aoma, our unsuspecting protagonist, finds himself incapacitated by Asami, the woman he thought might be the one. Asami calmly and methodically tortures him using acupuncture needles in places needles should never go, like these things. Her chilling refrain of Kiri Kiri Kiri, roughly translating to deeper, deeper, adds an eerie soundtrack to the proceedings. She then proceeds to remove his foot with a wire, all while maintaining an unsettling serenity. This juxtaposition of her calm demeanor with the gruesome acts creates a dissonance that's profoundly disturbing. It's a scene that digs under your skin, quite literally for the main character, and makes you question ever swiping right on the dating app again. Next up is Mirrors, and the jaw-dropping, pun unfortunately intended, scene involving Amy Smart's character, Angela. Imagine looking into a mirror and seeing your reflection do something entirely independent of you. Angela experiences just that when her mirror image begins to forcibly tear her own jaw apart. Unable to resist, she succumbs to a brutal self-inflicted injury orchestrated by an evil force. The visuals are graphic, showing the sheer horror of losing control over one's own body. It's not just about the gore, it's the psychological terror of being compelled to do this to yourself without any power to stop the demon. Let's just say this film gave me more of a reason to not look at the mirror, other than being ugly. Lastly, let's revisit the Final Destination franchise with the infamous tanning bed scene from Final Destination 3. Ashley and Ashlyn decide to get that perfect sun-kissed glow before graduation. But things go horribly wrong when their tanning beds malfunction. Trapped inside, they realize with mounting panic that escape is impossible. The temperature rises, and the scene doesn't shy away from depicting their terror and suffering as the heat becomes unbearable. The claustrophobia combined with the inescapable fate creates a very terrifying experience. It's a stark reminder that sometimes everyday places can become the setting for our worst nightmares. Plus, it probably did for tanning salons what Jaws did for beach vacations, a surge in cancellations. If these scenes left you feeling uneasy, hold tight as we descend further. We're now entering territory that blurs the lines between shock and sheer psychological torment. The layers below aren't just disturbing, they're downright haunting. Consider this your last trigger warning. The following scenes tackle some of the most harrowing and emotionally crushing moments in film, so please proceed with caution, and if you notice my voice tone go down, there's almost no enjoyment of these movies. They're trying to say something, a story or a lesson, and that story or lesson is usually not a positive one. And that's why we need to begin with the last house on the left, and its wood scene. This film doesn't contain any ghosts or supernatural monsters. It just shows us the reality of how evil humanity can be. And the particular moment I am talking about is a very gut-wrenching example. I have to tiptoe over how to explain this, unfortunately, due to the nature of YouTube. But you'll get the idea. And then if that makes you want to go watch the movie, why? But you can see it, yeah. Two girls find themselves in a very terrifying nightmare when they're captured by a guy named Krug and his gang. What unfolds is a bad thing that you can probably assume I'm saying. The scene is just terrifying. It really forces the audience to confront the raw brutality afflicted upon these women. And the reason why this is so shocking is because it's disturbingly realistic. It makes you feel mad, angry, and just disgusted. As you can tell from my tone of voice, I don't even want to talk about it. Like it's not done in a way that is exploitative like some of the lower entries on this list. This movie still has like a lesson it's trying to say, but it's very tough to talk about. It's very tough to even watch. Yeah. Moving on to a less real example and more of a just downright disturbing example is Saw 3 and the Rack Trap. The Saw franchise has never been light on gruesome imagery, but this particular trap takes the torment to a new level. Man finds himself trapped to a device designed to twist his limbs and ultimately his noggin. Each rotation brings excruciating pain and the sounds of twigs snapping. As he starts yelling, the clock ticks down and the moral dilemma intensifies. Jeff, the protagonist, is faced with the choice to save him by confronting his own forgiveness or let the mechanism complete its task. The scene is a brutal exploration of vengeance, justice, and the harrowing costs of inaction. It's not just the physical suffering that gets under your skin, but the psychological weight of choices and their consequences. Next up is Bone Tomahawk and its shocking execution scene. Blending Western motifs with horror elements, the film builds up to a moment that's as unexpected as it is brutal. One of the main characters is a captive and subjected to a horrifying fate at the hands of a tribe of cannibalistic cave dwellers. The scene doesn't flinch in its depiction, showcasing a level of savagery that's rare even in most horror movies. It's not just the visceral imagery that unsettles you, but the sheer helplessness of the situation. The stark realism strips away any layer of cinematic safety, leaving you feeling exposed to the raw cruelty unfolding on screen. This isn't just shock for shock's sake. It's a pivotal moment that underscores the unpredictability of the film world. Now let's revisit Art the Clown in the first Terrifier movie. And you know the scene I'm going to talk about if you've seen it, the hacksaw scene. See, Art isn't your average clown. He is a silent harbinger of chaos with just a desire to cause pain. In this scene, he captures a woman and subjects her to a fate that's very graphic. I cannot say what it is directly, but let's just say, you know how you cut a paper with scissors? Yeah. What makes it even more disturbing is he's almost calm or cheerful as he does it. There's no reasoning, there's no motive, it's just pure evil. It's a moment that really tests the limits of an audience's tolerance for gore, leaving even hardened horror fans like me shocked. I almost fainted after watching this the first time. After witnessing this, even the bravest might think twice about clowns or late night viewings of Terrifier. Lastly, Gerald's Game offers a different kind of horror with the intense handcuff scene. Jessie is left chained to a bed in a remote lake house after a tragic accident. As the hours stretch on and desperation sets in, she realizes that escape can only come with a painful price. The moment she decides to free herself is portrayed with unflinching realism. The scene is crafted expertly to make you feel every ounce of her agony and determination to escape. It's not just a physical struggle, but a psychological one, as Jesse confronts all of these inner demons. The film is trying to put you in that moment of, are you able to do such an action to live? And I can't explain what that action is, but it's often referred to as a coyote caught in a trap. They often have to do an action to escape. So yeah, it's pretty bad. As we emerge from Layer 4, it's clear that horror isn't solely about monsters or the supernatural. Sometimes the scariest thing is the darkness that can reside within actual people. Whether it's cruelty inflicted upon others or the extreme measures one might take when pushed to the brink, these scenes aren't just about fear. They're a deep dive into the unsettling complexities of human nature. They're challenging, they're uncomfortable, and they remind us that sometimes the most profound horrors are the ones that force us to confront the shadows lurking within ourselves. Which is why I need to warn you that I have not watched most of the movies now we're about to talk about. I have only researched them online and what happened, because I get really sad when scenes like this are shown and I just can't watch this stuff. I'm okay with like gore and that like extreme sort of fantastical effects, but this is where things get too real. So this is a warning. This is going to get dark really quickly, which means we need to talk about Megan is Missing, the barrel scene. So basically, after an event, one of the characters makes a girl named Amy an offer. He will let her go from capture if she agrees to climb into a large plastic barrel. This is the kind that chemicals are often stored in, very reminiscent of Breaking Bad. And if you've watched Breaking Bad, you'll understand that this is often used to get rid of a body. And with normal horror movies, you just expect a jump scare. But we are in Layer 5, so that doesn't happen. The girl believes this man and walks over to the barrel. He unscrews the lid, and then the camera and Amy both look down to reveal her friend, who has been there for a while, let's just say. Obviously, Amy started screaming. Josh then makes her go into the barrel and seals it shut. You can then hear the barrel being dragged outside and hear her screams. What is the most disturbing part about this is that all the while she's screaming, she is saying how much she loves him. Yeah, this is a tough watch. Don't watch this movie. Don't watch this movie. Layer 5, I would say all of these movies are still art. Like they have a message they are trying to convey. And that's what separates it from Layer 6, which is what I would consider borderline not art. It's almost exploitive at that point. But Layer 5 is really tough. Which brings us to Mother and the baby scene, which I actually watched this recently. The whole movie isn't that bad, but this scene is pretty disturbing. And it's not something you forget, because the entire movie is basically a metaphor for Jesus Christ or God and what would happen on earth if he came back. And basically, it tells the story of a girl who's named Mother, who is basically being ignored and not cared after and not taken care of by her husband, who is very obsessed with the idea of creating and his own self-image. This film ramps up throughout this movie, and you're not even aware it's a metaphor to something, to the point where she has a baby, and the husband is so desperate to be loved by everybody that he wants to give the people his baby. He doesn't think anything would go wrong. He just thinks that they would care about the baby, but he wants them to know that he has a child to gain that recognition for himself. But if you've seen this movie, you'll understand that the whole theme of this movie is things going too far. And the husband's inability to put his foot down and say, no, this needs to stop. That's why within 10 seconds, the baby is taken from him and is raised in a crowd on everyone's hands across the room so that the mother cannot get to the baby, and we hear a snap. Yeah, it's bad. And let's just say the bread of Jesus Christ is then given quite literally. That was bad. I guess worse, because we gotta talk about Martyrs, which is actually a good movie, but it is a tough watch. If you've seen this movie, you'll understand that it is about torture and pushing people to an extreme with torture. This gets pushed to the brink with the scene at the very end where the main character has, I'm going back to the KFC metaphor, that, but her entire body. Yeah. I hate that I have to describe an event such raw and real with a KFC metaphor. That just seems wrong, but the only way to talk about this on this platform is using that. Otherwise, this video would be taken down in 5 seconds. Which brings us to another French movie that is equally disturbing, and that's Inside, where it's about a woman who is trying to steal the baby of a mother, except the baby is still inside her. She's 7 to 9 months pregnant. The title of this scene is called C-section. They're not in a hospital, they are in a bathroom. And there's not a scalpel, there's not any medical instruments, there's scissors. Yeah, moving on. Another French movie, bonjour, what are y'all doing over there? Called High Tension. And the label of this scene is not a word I can say on YouTube, but it is a popular act one would do if you are a mommy and daddy that loves each other very much, but it's not the main thing. Let's just put it like that. Basically, we see a very bad person getting this act done to them by a person who is missing their head. Yeah, this is bad. I don't know how to explain this. I haven't watched this. I don't know what happens other than what I Googled, and what I Googled terrified me. So just take my word. So I'm already feeling a little disgusted right now. We have one more layer left, and this is where I would say these movies no longer are considered art. They are considered borderline too far. There is nothing to be said here, I don't think. One of these movies, the whole reason it was made is because it was like a critique on censorship. The government of the country this movie was made in was doing some heavy media censorship, and this whole movie was made as a big like, F you, we can do whatever we want. And they did whatever they want. We've got August Underground Mortem. Basically, this movie consists of a trio that attack a family, and they do unspeakable actions to every member of that family. I don't even want to talk about what they are because it's gonna give me a breakdown. This is gross. Moving on with gross, we have Guinea Pig Devil's Experiment, where basically this is the final segment of the movie, and it's called Needle. And how I would describe this is if you've ever went fishing, sometimes when you have a minnow, you have to bait your hook properly. And let's just say they do that with a person and their upper half of their body. Yeah. Moving on, we have The Hills Have Eyes, which I think is one of the more popular movies of all of these ones. Basically, it's a movie about a bunch of mutated cannibal sort of people that don't really have any ethics, and one of them commits a very bad action against one, and it's just very graphic and like visceral, and you can see the pain and like terror that that person is experiencing in like real time. And it's been said online that this is like a very real portrayal of this action. And that's why it is so terrifying. It's not like artistically done up to be scary. It's like artistically done in a way that is just downright disturbing. Then we're moving on to Irreversible, where we have the same sort of thing happen in an underground tunnel. And I haven't watched these movies, but what I found online is that what makes this even more disturbing is that a bystander walks by and does nothing, which sucks because that's honestly probably true in a lot of cases. And that's really, really sad. I think what makes some of these movies so gross and what separates them from horror and more of this other weird subgenre is like how real they get. Like, yeah. We have one more movie on this list, and that is a Serbian film, which is the movie I was referencing earlier about that was made as like a big FU to the government about censorship laws. Basically, the main character in this movie is a certain type of movie star of the adult kind, and they are tasked with pushing that boundary further and further to meet the demands of the business's clients. Basically, they go too far, and by going too far, it's crossing the line. I would say that. I would say this movie is crossing the line. I get that it's supposed to cross the line. I get that that's the director's idea of what was supposed to happen in this movie to make it cross the line, but I don't know. It's a lot. Anyways, that is the end of the Iceberg. I'm probably going to go book a therapy session right now. Some of these movies, if you want to watch them, the first layers are good. I like the first layers. Like, it's kind of like fun still. It's still graphic and fun. But anything past like layer 3 starts to get into you're going to have like very, very sad thoughts. If you want more icebergs like this in the future, like this video, subscribe, all the things. Maybe comment down below what movie you've seen on here and what you think is missing from this list. But yeah, if you want to watch more of my videos talking about horror movies and all the scary stuff, there's a video on screen right now. but I'm gonna go call my therapist. Bye.